except for Oliver Stone. We are introverted but willing to discuss Tori Amos. Tonight, we are honored to have a producer, composer, arranger, multi-instrumentalist, musical visionary in our presence. He's worked alongside some of the biggest legends in music history, and he also happens to be Tori Amos's longtime ride-or-die right-hand man across many decades and many projects. Most recently, this dynamic duo collaborated on the wildly whimsical soundtrack that accompanies the New York Times best-selling children's book, Tori and the Muses. Please welcome our friend, the maestro, John Philip Shenale. Welcome.
Yeah,
That was wonderful. Thank you so much.
We're so happy to have you in the house with us tonight. It's a real honor, and I know our listeners are going to love it as well. Before we dig in, we do want to say thank you to our listeners for making the last couple of episodes huge and really fun to participate in. We've heard you all, we've heard that you love our list making, so we're coming at you tonight with yet another list. This time it's the big one. It's our top 10 favorites list, not our best of, not our underrated. It's our favorites. So tonight you're in for a real treat as we unveil our top 10s alongside John Philip Shenale, who will be sharing his top 10 Tori Amos tracks that he did not work on. Maybe with a twist. We'll see.
Maybe, yeah. Are you nervous?
I am. I was nervous because I couldn't find the list.
Oh,
okay,
no.
I got it. Okay, I got it. I mean, it's a list. It's a crazy list. It goes beyond
Of course.
anything that you guys would ever want.
No, this is going to be exactly what we want, I'm sure. We're kind of in Sophie's choice mode when it comes to these lists. And tonight, it's even harder because whittling things down to a top 10 is damn near impossible with Tori because Tori has hundreds of songs across many decades, many styles, many genres. And we talk a lot on the podcast about how hard it is to put these lists together. So I wonder how hard it was for you to put this list together tonight, especially because you're doing it with the caveat of, maybe avoiding some of the songs that you worked on.
Yeah. The problem that I have is I ended up over the years, especially in that crazy period of the octets and the quartets and the orchestral stuff, I ended up actually working on the stuff that I wanted to work on. I don't know if you guys realized that I did actually arrange Father Lucifer, the same session that I'm throwing. Is it too early for extra tidbits along the way?
Anytime, as they come to you, go for it.
So the weird thing is, Marianne, stream of consciousness, amazing period of time, not only the music, but everything about that era. So I end up coming to London, we had to go to Ayr. We did Marianne, and that was superb in the church, the Ayr church there. And then we got to Father Lucifer, and there was an incredible amount of rubato, and I had purposely done a click for it, because you have to, because Tori, has to be translated to us mere earthlings to understand the rhythm. So I provided that. And it didn't sync for whatever reason. The machines, it was a period of time of weird digital syncing and ADATs and tape machines and all that. So it didn't sync. And it was a very problematic recording that arrangement. And it didn't get done. I mean, Marianne, so far, at that point in time, it didn't make any difference because Marianne was so overwhelming. So we let it go. Time passes. And then this orchestral thing comes up and T says, hey, you should do Father Lucifer. And I kind of thought, I kind of remember that song. And I started playing it. I kind of remember it. And I wrote a completely new arrangement. I didn't know what I did. I kind of move on. And that's what you hear with the quartet. But that's an example of that because I loved Father Lucifer and it never quite gelled. So with a lot of these things, I wasn't even available at certain times with Venus. In fact, I think I was doing some things with Jimmy Barnes or something. I don't know. There was all kinds of conflicts with that. So it never happened. So a lot of those songs like Sugar, wish I would have been, Sugar would have been one of them. Let's see what else. Lady in Blue that's another one I wish I would have done. I did other stuff on there though, but not that one. And
you did a lot on that album. Yeah.
But the harmonics and all that stuff that you did with it was so cool the way it kind of descended into these chord patterns. Blood Roses, The Maids of Elfenmere, and Promise. But, that's so stupendous with Tasha and all that. So maybe I might hold back on that one. But, the ones that I wanted to work on, like Winter, did Leather. Oh, Hey Jupiter. God, that was great. With the octet, that was a great version with the octet at the the New York club.
Yeah, Matt and I were at the NPR show at
Oh
the Poisson Rouge. We spoke to you afterwards. We were so blown away by
God. And,
that whole, yeah.
in the NPR, it's, forever on the, in video. I
Yeah.
watch it because it's just such a serene, beautiful thing that
I want
they
to tell
did.
you, I'm a writing professor, and I do a lesson on revision, and I use Tori songs often. I've used Sugar in the past, right? The original B-side,
Mm,
the 96 version, then I
mm.
go to the 98 version. But lately, I've been using Hey Jupiter, and I've been going from the original version to Dakota, and then I end with the NPR octet. And almost to like a T, all my classes always say that last iteration is their favorite. They always say that there's something about it that is their favorite. They think it's like the most cohesive. They feel like it the marriage between the music and the vocals just feels most like it's most sharply telling a story. They just overwhelmingly prefer it. And I think you should know that. And yeah,
That's wonderful to know that.
yeah.
From day to day, I know where the cupboards are, where the colors blocked. I know he isn't true. Never
There's something there that I can't explain. I could never discuss my relationship with that song at this point. Maybe when I'm 90 or 100 I could, but at this point I can't, because there was an unusual connect that happened with that song. And also T and I had been discussing more progressive things, and so it all came together. But that's kind of the story of our lives. Snow Cherries is an interesting one, because even it is the most delicate, sweetest, hence the title, of arrangements, and it occurred completely from stream of consciousness. Marianne is a stream of consciousness, but a deep stream of consciousness. Snow Cherries was a light stream of consciousness, and it literally happened. I had 2 hours left before the limo driver was picking me up to do the Metropole, and I finished it just in time, and Marta took it, my stalwart proofreader, vitamin injector crazy woman in my life, and she took it and sent it to our Lon Price, my copyist. But I mean, literally, I just handed it to them. She corrected whatever needs, notes or whatever. There weren't very many, and she did it, and then it just showed up, like, and by the time I got to Holland, and it was perfect. It was wild. Those are two instances of pure stream of consciousness. I mean, in the last one, there was no ability to think on it. But anyways, I love Snow Cherries. What else is going on here? Oh, so the whole Venus thing, in a way, I would have wished I would have been on that. That would have been an interesting point. In a way, my version of electronica now is quite different. It wouldn't have been quite the same, although the beginnings of much of the granular and synthesis and convolution that is now just beginning to happen, in the last decade, I was already on it at that time and probably would have inserted it, but who knows, listen, if I wouldn't have worked on Little Earthquakes, maybe Tori and I would have worked on other things. I mean,
Right.
We don't know. All we know is that whatever the decisions we made, we're like happy as larks now. So it worked out.
That's cute.
Love it.
You have worked with Tori for many decades now. How did you come to work together, and what was your initial reaction to hearing her music?
So I was in the middle of being Mr. Pop guy massively, and, hundreds of records, blah, 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 and synths and all this stuff. And I was hired by David Sigerson, who was the producer of Little Earthquakes. Early on, we had already been working about 5 or 6 years together. And we had a great relationship, and he was progressive enough to allow me to dabble. And, through that dabbling, I eventually moved beyond that because I wasn't very satisfied doing pop music. But ultimately, anyways, Tori was part of this transition. I mean, she showed up right at the perfect moment to say, okay, let's reevaluate what this stuff is about. And it just so happened that we identified on so many levels. I mean, our educational background, what we've listened to since we were little babies, the constant stream of consciousness thinking, we joke about it. It's like, people say, parents say, don't think so much. Well, my parents never said anything about it. My mom might have said, don't think so much, but we use that as we think too much. That's what we do. That's the thing. And I found another person in her that thinks too much, and hence the relationship from the beginning. It wasn't just music, but music is a big part of it. It was a philosophy and the way we envision this three-dimensional space we exist in. And so that hit it off right from the beginning. I didn't play too much on Little Earthquakes, but I was involved in correcting some orchestral stuff and playing a couple of keyboards on some things and doing some, I'm not sure if I did some B-sides after Little Earthquakes or after Under the Pink. I think it might have been Under the Pink. I can't remember exactly, but, but we were always together, noshing, and she was in the church, so I'd pick her up or, we'd go for lunch. I mean, it was just a wonderful time. And we did it many, many times a week, and Eric too. I mean, we were great friends, and it was a wonderful period of time. And, that's the foundation of our relationship to this day, expanded. Our consciousness is hopefully more expanded. Our discussions are more deeper. Our music is deeper. Both of us have evolved. But it's very interesting to have someone to be able to communicate the way we do together. Nobody is quite like our relationship, just because all the information and all the things we've shared and all the experiences of creativity, all the long nights into 4:00 in the morning conversations about, stars exploding and what's a gravity wave and why do we think religion is important, that sort of thing. So yeah, so that's, I think the implication you said, you prefaced this by saying how long we've known each other and all that. I think that is part of it. And the other part of it is because our sense of balance in music, in what stimulates us. This T, as an example, I'll talk about T as an explanation of this. T has the ability to balance some very quirky things in a way that makes sense, and I like that. I like the ability to not necessarily think. I think you mentioned something about her multiple styles, or maybe you said me. It's interchangeable. But anyways, we're both influenced by many, many different things. And we're interested. We're curious, and we're not fearful of them. Well, whether it be country music or roots music, get into it. And also, we both have an interesting history that happened approximately at the same time. I played in clubs from about 1968 and rolling off at the end of the 70s, because I did the Beach Boys for a couple of years and then blah, blah. So eventually it went into studio work. Well, her thing is she played in clubs and in hotels in that period of time. We played many kinds of music that we didn't particularly care for, we kind of half liked. That led to her ability to do these crazy covers in her own way, because she basically was that. She was busking. I'm positive that Tori would read a few lines and chord structures and just go blah, we're going to play, improvise. I mean, that's the joy of that. I've done some solo piano work, and that really is something that just is lovely. I mean, you pianists love that. I, on the other hand, studied many styles in the process. I mean, some of my earliest bands were funk bands and R&B bands, and then eventually rock bands and prog bands. I mean, all kinds of stuff. And then top 40 bands. So we really, between the two of us, we cover a lot of territory. And I think that's another bond that we have. And we're ready to jump into something. But it never sounds contrite or never sounds weird because it's been consumed. As you know, when Tori did Strange Little Girls, she consumed those songs. I mean, those weren't her songs anymore. I mean, those weren't the artist's songs anymore. They were hers. And that's the sign of a great composer, to be able to take the core of something and create her own space in it. She did the same with Night of Hunters. That was the intention of our intention, was to do exactly what happened on that record. In fact, I never listened to the originals, ever. I didn't want to know what they did. Just like I didn't want to know what Claire Fisher did when he did the first arrangements for Under the Pink.
We're curious, what would you say, and you don't have to say just one, there can be multiple, but what would you say it has been the most, or some of the most challenging things that you and Tori have ever had to deal with when putting a song either to to record or figuring out the arrangement? And what is that feedback loop like between the two of you when you're trying to solve a puzzle, when you're trying to figure something out about making it work? What does that look like? Can you give us examples of that? So a two-parter, but they're really linked. Yeah.
I'll have to give you a couple of examples to cover
Please.
everything.
We thought you
So,
might.
Native Invaders, Reindeer King is an example of that. And also Mary's Eyes to a certain extent, because we did a lot of jawing. The general thing with Tori and I is we do a lot of talking about music that we're talking about, but also about narrative, and possibly narrative more in general, usually. So with Reindeer King, there were weeks of talking about the ecological system. What is this native Reindeer King environment, and she brought up the wolves and all these things. It's not like we're making this land up. It's not like we have a vision of the land. These lands tell us, we say things, the land tells us back, this works here, this doesn't. A couple of days later, something else. It's a very stream of consciousness for two people at one time, I think, which is interesting. And we allow each other to stream together and then come back with new things and stuff. And Reindeer King was an example of that. It's also at the same time I was enhancing my studies in granulization and convolution synthesis. And that fit perfectly with Reindeer King because first of all, we have another land which contains organic elements in it, but it's another land. It's like, I was going to say Australia, but like the fruits taste different, vegetables taste differently well, let's say magnify that by 1,000 times. That's what we're trying to do, but keep it organic. And convolution and granular synthesis allows you to do that in the right way. So I used a lot of that, a lot of affected natural sounds, and also, the wolf sound was not a wolf sound. It was a synth. I'm not exactly sure what I did with that, but I can't remember exactly. But so there were a lot of things that created that, and she discussed it, and in my mind, this is what happened. From our discussions, it became these things. And I explained to her that I was going to do these new things that I was experimenting with. So as a result, Reindeer King occurred, a combination of both organics and electronics, leaning heavily on organics. So that took a long time. I mean, that probably from beginning to end, from the very first discussions of that song to the final me sending them the files and acceptance, could have taken 4 weeks, maybe more. That's an exceptionally articulate song. Here's a good example of what happens when it doesn't work. So that guy, I'm always poking the bear with, technological bear with stuff. And I forgot, Jesus, what record was that on? Was that on Abnormally Attracted or was it on Posse?
It was
One of them.
Abnormally.
Yeah. And so anyways, I came up with this thing kind of nebulous and I wasn't quite sure what I was doing. Well, lo and behold, Tori goes, I'm not sure about this because I wasn't sure. I mean, it was like, okay. So what happened next is I completely committed myself and said, okay, stop dicking around. Stop messing around. You can cut, that out. And just go for what am I hearing? In other words, what that conversation did to me and said, what's going on here? What is going on with it? And it went into the 60s. And that's why that whole thing developed, because that conversation, I've got another example. Well, okay. So anyways, you got the idea that got there. So another song, I just remembered this, Insect Ballet. And we had some pretty good ideas as to what's happening and we're working on it. We were talking about that record since January of 8 months before we even started working on it. And I'd gone to Florida and I presented some ambient things and drones and stuff like that. And Insect Ballet and a mermaid came out of those sessions. So anyways, I was stuck on every layer of music has both the sound and why is that there? What is it doing there? What is it? Is it fast? Is it slow? Is it making me nervous? Is it an irony? Is it all these questions I always ask? Many times someone, like back in the day when I first started studying it, I'd be in a session and say, oh, well, this is good, Chuck. Who gives a... Really? You're going to do that? That's what you're going to do? That's an identity? Oh, you mean something that has been played on the guitar since the 52, Okay, so that's not what I do. That's not what T does. We try to find something, okay, how do we express a feeling that everybody feels in a new way? Or how do we express a new feeling in a new way? All these questions. So T and I we're talking about insect ballet, and we're talking about the language and what are they doing in her instructions, and they're going to be their little feet tripping around and all that. Then she said, like fireflies. I even forgot how we even got into that conversation. I said, holy shit, that's what it is. It's fireflies. And that's where the whole reed ideas, that's how I interpret it, as all those reeds coming in and out and swirling and, coming all over the place, and the timing being weird. And my inspiration for that, even though you would probably not recognize the connection, but from an intellectual standpoint or from a vibe standpoint, it's the sound of the river. It starts with little bursts of strings, flurries, woodwinds, all that stuff. That was my ancient mind going back to that. This was very contemporary, but anyways, in my head, I said, okay, that's how you approach that. So all of these things have to do with a lot of conversation, and they're not musical. The thing about T and I that I love about our relationship is it's our words that inspire our music. We don't get into our music, although occasionally we'll say, you might change that or something. But most of the time it's words. And through that, I've gained a massive understanding of words. I know it sounds crazy, but language has become so important to me. It was important to me as a producer when I'm dealing with lyrics, but never has it been so important to me as it is now. With T is kind of like the seed that started this back in having a nice Italian meal in Los Angeles in 1988. From those conversations, both of our lives have been, I think, really enhanced because of them. And that's how our process is language based, even though, we like to think in higher order musical phrases. It's language.
I love that. And I love thinking about insect ballet in that way. And it brings us pretty naturally to the next question, because Tori's music can be so hard to define by commercial standards. Given your unique vantage point, how would you describe Tori's sound to somebody who had maybe never heard it?
Easy task.
Well, when you think of Tori as the seed of so many other artists, I would do it that way. Although I have to say, the problem with Tori is she's such a damn good piano player. Nobody is like that. Alicia Keys doesn't play piano at all like that. Nobody plays like, I mean, I would say she's kind of like Billy Joel, but way more progressive and broader in span. When you say someone is a polystylist, you think that, oh, maybe they don't have a style or something. But she's really a polystylist consumer. She consumes these things and creates new music from the consumption of it. And you can see some elements in it, but it's always hers. I don't think there's someone, of course Kate Bush could be used as an example, not a modern example. But the problem, I think, with using Kate as a description is I don't think she went far enough. T has expanded that multi-ethnic cultural thing into a much longer, more material, more music has been created in this way. Can you guys think of anybody that, I'd like to know, is there?
It's hard, right?
Kristen, it looks like you're dying to jump in.
Oh, no, I'm not dying to jump in, but I think it's actually a fascinating question, and I love treating Tori as the seed. Like, I think if somebody's kind of like, what's the sound? What's the vibe? I'm just like David Bowie. That's what I say.
Interesting.
And
especially because of the way she treats language.
Exactly.
She moves language around crazy.
And just how prolific. And then in terms of like playing.
Good call.
We talk about this on the podcast a lot because we all started listening to Tori so young in our lives. Like, in a lot of ways, we've been spoiled by her because she is the ultimate musician. And so, like, we'll go see people play and nobody plays like her. The only person I've ever seen play like Tori was Stevie Wonder. And I was really blown away by him. And that was incredible.
Massive.
And I've never seen anybody else like them in all the concerts I've been to. I just haven't.
That was a good call, Stevie Wonder. I never thought of that one too. Yeah.
The thing about Tori is that she's a master at covering or consuming and then, putting back out the work of others through her covers. But one of the ways that I would sort of describe Tori, which is not much of a description, but I always come back to the idea that she's essentially uncoverable. And that is the thing about her. She is so singular, and so sui generis, that it's like you'd be hard struck to find like a cover that is serviceable of her music, because it's just, even when she's trying to be more straightforward, she's still just too quirky and too smart and too brilliant to, stay in that lane or stay in the lines. I think she's uncoverable, and that's one of the ways to describe her music. Like, you just have to hear her do it because nobody else can.
It's interesting because back in the 90s, there were a couple of women artists who came up to me and wanted me to produce them, obviously because of my connection with T. They sounded exactly like T. And I said, you have wonderful voices, but there's already an artist that does this. I mean, well, that's the old days. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I got out of it, because it's just, stop, find something. Go to a mountain top somewhere and don't listen to anything and create stuff from scratch. I never listened to anything. I mean, I listen to classical music and I compose. I mean, I surround myself with what I do. Maybe that's weird. I don't know. I feel very comfortable doing it. I've basically been an isolated person since I was 5, or, well, since as long as I can remember. I've been making up my own world since that time. So here we are, making up our worlds together.
I think that sounds a lot better than participating in the dumpster fire of a world that's happening right now. But that's another podcast altogether.
Okay, I got the next question for you, JPS. This one might be a loaded question, but what would surprise us the most about recording with Tori?
What wouldn't you know? So that's a double question, because I have to understand what you guys think.
It can
What
be
would
anything. Surprise us about something pragmatic or something, would you surprise us and tell us that she eats fried chicken before she records? Or
here's the you other boys may feel differently than me, but like, especially you, Matt, because you worked with her in Cornwall. But like, I actually don't really know much about what it's like to record with Tori. That part of her life, like, I'm not a musician, so I can't even read between the lines. Like, I can't even guess. So I actually don't know anything about it. Like,
same. I think those like EPKs of Choir Girl and Pele are like some of the most cherished few minutes of footage that we have of her recording.
What are those?
Just like those promotional little videos before, like they show her recording the background vocals of Call to Light Sneeze in the church, or like I would kill for hours of that,
I would love to record us together. In fact, I might be able to at some point, but I'll never release it, because then no, but I can't, because I want these memories, when I'm 110 and trying to remember what the hell, why am I here? What? I want to be able to look at those videos and go, who is that? Who are those two people? Anyways, but no, I mean, we've had some ridiculous times together. I mean, air dancing to crazy shit. I mean, that was the first moment and when she heard Anastasia, we were both dancing around my studio. I mean, I remember them in my head. I just, I think at that time I would have recorded it, but I didn't have anything to record. I wouldn't have, because I don't do that.
Yeah.
You're part of the experience. I mean, the last times that we've been working together very intimately have been wonderful. The only way I can explain it is it's just back and forth, rapid fire, on your toes, exchanging ideas, like in Florida, for example, I would record her vote, we would do something, get an idea, I'd play something, she'd play something, she'd record, really rough stuff. A lot of that stuff was, there were rough ideas, and then she clarified them in Cornwall. It's interesting because being around her, you have to be on your toes, because as with all artists, at any moment we can come up with something. You have to be ready to record it. And this is one of the things in my lecture I stress with people, mostly, younger people, younger musicians. You have to have your iPhone ready, and I don't give a shit if you think, I'll remember this. Number one, I don't give a shit if you think it's shit. If you came into your head, put it on your phone, at least. Now, you may forget it. You don't know how many seeds that I've discovered over the years. I've been doing this since I first got an iPhone. Things I go, what? I can't even understand how I came up with that. And then I may take it. I may use it. And I say, okay, what was I thinking? What was I doing? But at least if you have the live performance of something, not a conceptualization, not something that you words you have to write down, but you can possibly get that emotion back and then continue the chain of whatever that creativity was. And that's the thing with T and I. We record, I've got tons of stuff I've recorded on the iPhone between her and Maiden discussions and stuff like that. And many times we have to refer back to them because we have to go, okay, what was that reference? What was the musical reference for that and all that? And we do that often. There's usually a period of time, even in Cornwall this last time, we took a time to freestyle, so to speak. Never mind. I don't want to talk about what's
Gosh.
because I want to tell you, okay, I'll tell you this. There's some pretty gnarly stuff coming up.
Ooh, I
Gnarly,
love
I like that
gnarly.
word.
I love gnarly.
About this, I'm not as sure exactly. Many times T will say, no, it's okay. You can talk about that. I mean, just not even with the podcast coming up, just in general.
Yeah.
We haven't had a chance to talk about this yet. And all right, if we did, I can't remember what we decided.
I think she would say that we're very attractive and she loves us and you can tell us everything.
Correct.
Know
Okay.
that for a
Okay,
fact.
great.
Yeah. No,
I think we all know better.
I can say one thing that you guys have probably figured out. There's a tour coming up, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, you know that.
Yes, we do.
So you can read between the lines.
we
okay.
know, we can feel it in the air when we know that
So
a Tori
okay,
album is
now
about to come out.
I can talk about it because I just classified it in a good way. Okay, so
Yeah.
read between the lines.
You actually didn't touch on this yet, and I think this is going to be a really interesting place to go. How would you say working with Tori has shaped the way in which you work with other musicians on their music? I mean, so not only yours, but so thinking about your work with T, how does it change the way you interact with other musicians? Or does it feel like that interaction with Tori is so specific and special that it doesn't actually bleed over into work with others? I'm very curious about that.
It only bleeds over into non-commercial work.
Mm,
It bleeds over when I'm working with creatives.
okay.
For example, with Willie DeVille, I produced 4 records with him. Very eclectic, very polystylist, in a completely different set of genres than Tori is. And completely the opposite situation, other than the fact of being a very freestyle creative. Openness is what both T and Willie taught me. T, earlier on, before I did Willie, her ability to listen and to suggest things in a very neutral way, always curious in the back. Well, what would happen if this happened? What would happen here? And without ego. And that I bring with me, not only when I produce, but also when I arrange. I really don't want to work with people that aren't like that. And I don't. Whether I realize that I should do it or not. I mean, things just go away because, I'm beginning to see things, let's say with an artist, I could see things with an artist that would, okay, there's a repetitive nature or we're going over the same ground all the time and I'm trying to come up with new stuff all the time, but it's the same ground over and over again. Eventually you go, why are we doing this? This is not the core of this. You've lost the core. You've lost the core reason why. Where's the curiosity? Where's the inventiveness? All those things. I got maybe 20 or 30 years left. I don't have time for that. I just want to create things that are meaningful and cool, maybe people remember something along the way or not. That's the other thing about being an artist. You have to be willing to like your art even if nobody else does.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to say this. This is not something I would have said years ago. I would never have said that. I would have said, well, people like your art. That's blah, 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 blah. I don't look at it this way anymore. I look at it in the sense that this is something I created. This is a child that I created. You like it or you don't like it. It's okay. It's not that I'm trying to be obscure. It's that this was approach. There's going to be another piece of art that people may love, but this is a piece of art that I love only.
I love that.
And I think that's the only way to free yourself, to be able to create the art that you want to create.
I was going to
Whether
say
it be
that sounds very
literature or whatever.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I was going to say that sounds very liberating,
Mm-hmm.
very freeing.
Yeah. And by the way, we're victims of a timeline. I'm talking about just the idea that you write something at one point and 10 years later, it means something entirely different to you and contextually to the environment of the timeline right now, of whatever app changed 10 years later. So, I mean, that's the other thing about art is it's dynamic. It can be stationary. You write it in one period of time, but everything is changing and even its meaning is changing. What the heck? Why be so judgmental? I mean, we should be saying, hey, let's see what happens in 10 years. Like, why can't Tori read? You know, I mean, there are elements of that are very cool and unique, you
A
know.
lot.
Much of it. Much
So,
of it.
Love it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting to know her and then see her take on the time period. It's almost like a gauge of the time period.
It's still very Tori at its core, which is cool, I think, to watch the evolution.
Okay, we have just a couple more questions. So, hypothetically, if you were putting together an unreleased compilation of Tori's music from any one album era, what would it be and why?
What would you describe as an era?
You know, like an album era. So, from the Choir Girl Hotel era, Boys for Pele era.
Well, okay. So I'm going to be very only childlike in this. And the period of time between Midwinter Graces and up until The Light Princess, and during the arranging process of The Light Princess, that period for me was my most favorite music. Now, obviously, I was involved in a lot of it, but I'll tell you why that was, is because as a rock and roll classically trained, untrained, trained and untrained musician, I grew up as a classical composer. I was composing from 5 on. My image of what I would have wanted to do would be that. My idea would be what I did from 2009 to 2013. Those years in there, it was completely Tori. It was going across LA to Europe. I mean, I think my passport, I had a number of years that were like 4 times crossing to Heathrow. I mean, to Holland to, practice at Hilversum. That was my dream period. I savored every moment of it because I think I had written something like 200 scores in that period of time. Become very fluid in score writing, very fluid in sounds. And for me, that was a joyous thing, writing for the quartets, both on the album and in the tour, especially the tour. Do I tell this story? Okay, I'll say it nicely. It is a nice story. It's a great story because they kicked ass. But Tori in the rehearsal had to get their asses kicked.
Oh,
She had to kick their asses. And all I know is I'm sitting there in the studio at night and John calls me. I didn't know it. Well, I knew it was John, but I hear his music. And this music is kicking ass. And I'm going, who is this? What is this? This is wonderful. Of course, not recognizing it's my arrangement playing. And John comes on, oh, it's the Warsaw Symphony. I'm going, Jesus. And then later I said to Dee, I said, man, the Warsaw Symphony was great. And she said, yeah, after I beat their asses, apparently she had to, cajole them into this and this brings up a larger topic, the difference between, classical musicians and rock musicians and other musicians. Sometimes, not all the time, sometimes there's a barrier there. And I experience it myself when, people are playing my arrangements. I mean, when they first get into it, they're kind of like hesitant, and then through whatever means is necessary. This is some serious stuff. Finally they get to a point where they're playing the parts that are serious and they realize that this is not bullshit. This is serious music that you guys actually have to play well. It's problematic. There's dynamics involved in this. There's notes, and they may not necessarily be notes that you like, but they're notes that I like. But anyways, T was really responsible for that. And so it's funny. It's like a joke. It's like, yeah, the Warsaw Symphony. Well, and I really love that because that is a sign that T really adapted to that whole orchestral thing. She really got what she needed to do. She needed to drive it. And she did so well with that. It's just amazing with all the orchestras she played with, and Sydney too.
Great. So the question that I have next, I think you actually have already answered it for us about what you've been up to in Cornwall. So I'll sidestep that for the moment because I don't want to make you say anything you don't want to say.
But
Yeah.
I'll add one thing about Cornwall. It's an incredible environment.
Matthew has attested to that.
You walk out the door at any time, you get inspiration. You say hi to the cows. They're moving. Every time you see them, they're in a different part of the field. I love them.
It's truly a magical place, and I'm not somebody who really gets into that kind of stuff all the time, but when I was there, you could feel it in the air. It felt different. It felt very special. There was electricity going on. And I remember as I was leaving, I was joking with Tori and Mark that I think that's where I'm going to have to buy a vacation home
Yes.
because it was so great. The sea salty air, just the smells, the tastes. It was a wonderful, wonderful place. Yeah.
Pasties.
Yeah, in Bude. I stayed outside, well, kind of in Bude, in a bed and breakfast for a couple of days after a night of hunters because I was just blown out and I had to decompress at some point. And it was wonderful walking along those cliffs and all that stuff and the wind and everything. It was like a black and white British film from the 50s or something, and the
Yes.
waves crashing, representing lost love and blah, blah, the whole thing. You can see cinematographers there.
Yes.
It was
Doing
very
their thing.
Powell and Pressburger for me.
Yeah.
Those like wartime epics. So good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, the question I'm putting in its place, it's a two-parter, but they're a corollary of each other. So I'm curious if you can tell us, part A, is there something that we might not realize we're hearing on a particular song that you love, like some sort of little quirk or detail from a song that you performed on that the layperson like me might not understand what I'm hearing, but when you hear that or your memory of that thing being in there, I'm curious about that. And the second part is the opposite. Was there something that you did on, like in studio, that when you heard the final version, you were surprised or maybe crestfallen to find that T had gotten rid of it or downplayed it somewhere in the mix? I'm sure that happens a lot, right? So I'm
It
kind of
doesn't
asking
happen that much, but when it happens,
Yeah.
it's pretty...
It's upsetting. Well, answer that in whatever order you want.
She's the producer.
Sure.
I'm not Mr. Producer.
That's right. It's not a democracy.
Yeah, don't forget it. Then don't you forget it. Well, the first one is an interesting thing because I thought it was so subtle, and it's not. And it would maybe appear redundant to most people. I put a Moog bass paralleling the Bosey in Reindeer King. And this is prior to even the heavy synths coming in or the big
What does that
orchestration.
mean? I know nothing about music. Talk
Okay.
to me like I'm 5, please.
Oh,
tell me all,
okay.
Tell me all about it.
Let's get into the technical stuff. So basically, that the bass on the Bosey, the low strings are phenomenal on the Bosendorfer. They're full-bodied. But what I thought it needed to be hyper. It needed to be massive because what was coming is massive. It needed to be set up in a way like that. So what I did was I took a Moog, mini Moog, a real one, and I tracked the low end of her pedal, like the lowest tone that she's playing. I tracked it, played it, exactly what she was playing on a Moog with a sub-octave and the note that she's playing and lower, but a tone that had no color. Moog has a way of having no color, but yet having a little color on it. That's what Moog filters do that. Bob Moog invented this concept of filter design, electronic design that had a little bit of distortion on it and just enough to give it a little character. So that's what I put underneath her Bosey. So it was riding on this wave. So not only was it huge, but it was huge down. And what's interesting about it is that, and I figured, it's great and they'll use it or not. I figured maybe it's overkill. And Mark said to me, I forgot if it was an email or not. He said, no, it's when I saw him live, when they played at the Ace, I think. I talked to him about it. And he said, Philly, that Moog low end was awesome. I mean, he was really digging it. And I went, wow, that's cool. I thought that was going to be a subtle thing. And it's probably subtle. You probably would never notice it. But what it does is it expands this feeling of that piano is boldly banging through that track, even when it's playing soft. It's very present because of it.
Now that I would skate all the way, just to hold your hand, to take away your pain.
So the flip side of that, basically what happens is that many times I will follow the words directly. In other words, the description of certain sections, and they become too articulated, and it becomes too much because what is added later, there's no room for what that was, even though it started out there and even though our discussions went there. So the arrangement is basically correct, but things have changed, and they have to be allowed to change. I mean, I would expect nothing. I mean, once the rhythm section gets in there and all that, ideas change and concepts change. And T is one of the most gracious people in dealing with that, with anyone. Well, I'm assuming with anyone. She's extremely gracious with me, and she builds me up, so I know something's coming. So, again, us only children, we have a sensitivity to these things. But anyways, so no, she's really good at it, lowering the boom, so to speak. But it wasn't. And in retrospect, it makes sense in terms of the context of what ultimately happened with the song, how it evolved. And also, there were a lot of great parts that were left. So I can't complain. I mean, I like the original arrangement idea, but hey, that's why I'm making my record. I can fuck it up as much as I want.
Are you not going to tell us what song it was? Is that too private?
No, I'm not going to do that. No, it's
God.
happened a couple of. No, I can't. But the thing
Okay.
is, no, but the thing
It's
is,
a great answer, though. It's a really good answer.
bits and pieces of it. This sort of thing has happened occasionally. It doesn't happen very often, though. Surprisingly enough, I mean, everything is pretty much kept intact. That's the thing about arranging too, is that when you're dealing at this level, when you're not like just simply writing a beautiful line that runs over the top of a Marvin Gaye song, which no doubt that's great and simple. But when you're dealing with this sort of thing, it's kind of like this a house, and you start removing pieces of the house, and all of a sudden things can fall apart, because that's the way I arrange everything now, is it's all interconnected pieces with identities of their own, so that they can be dismantled, but I kind of conceive of them as a complete whole. I mean, I would imagine being a screenwriter and watching your screenplay dismantled, and then seeing the movie going, yeah, but there's whole sections of this missing.
Mhm.
It's probably the same. It's the same deal.
Yeah. I really appreciate the way you talk about the bigness of Reindeer King. We're all really big fans of that song, which I'm sure we'll hear some of it discussed later. But that's so interesting to get that insight into why such an intimate song feels so big and propulsive. Yeah.
And that's an interesting point, because making something big for sake of making it big, and it's big, oh, it sounds big, that's not the thing. It's a psychological bigness. And that's really where I find I'm so intrigued by that. I've always been. When I was listening to Alexander Nevsky when I was 7, that's what I thought was amazing. The Crusaders invading Moscow. I mean, these things, it was big, but there was an emotional bigness to this. And I've always sought that. I've always gone for that, whether it's arranging or producing or whatever the hell. There's something about that makes things real, as opposed to just going, here's a bunch of strings playing all at once, or horn.
That term, the emotional size of something, is really interesting to me when we're talking about music, because I always think of Tori's music as being so cinematic, and it's the same with cinema. Great cinema has that emotion that you just really connect with, or you really lock into, the same as you would with a Tori song or a great song by a great artist. I think that's a really interesting way to think about music in relation to the way we experience it. Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah, T definitely has that. She visions things, and that's another thing that we grokked onto early on between the two of us. That visual aspect and the time aspect, the timeline aspect. Is something here, or is it in the past, or is it in the future, or is it only on the inside? Like Girl Disappearing is a great example of this. That's an internal question. That's an internal piece. We're looking inside of flesh and blood of a girl, her emotional inside. And that was an interesting thing too to develop, because it literally happened when I visioned in a garret above Paris. When I saw that, I heard that. That I scored to that. Her opening the window, her seat, looking outside, her getting ready. It came because I had nothing. I had nothing until I saw that. It probably took me about a day or two to come to. That's what that is.
Prison behind you, I she whispers been surprised there was no protection by the serpent light.
Sometimes it takes that long. Sometimes it takes a week. When people say, how long does it take to arrange a song? It takes a lot of cups of coffee and watching Deadpool. That's how long it takes. Maybe 2 or 3 times. Or maybe the trilogy, you know? Because the conscious is constantly working. If you're not drinking, I don't want to go into that too much, but I want to say one thing about not drinking, because I completely stopped about, well, the end of COVID, 2020. Again, I hadn't drunk for 2 decades and started up again. And then when I stopped this time, it was an explosion. It was nonstop. It was like you're thinking too much on steroids and composing too much on steroids, thinking too much, writing narratives too much, philosophizing too much, politicizing too much. It exploded and it hasn't stopped. And it's the most rewarding period of time of my life. Pull it back a little bit if you're want to do it, because you'll discover there's a huge amount of creativity just screaming at you saying, stop it. I'm waiting to come out, Anyways, that's my, what is it called? Public
PSA for the night?
Yeah, PSA. That was a PSA. Yeah.
But now it is time for us to reveal our top 10 favorite Tori songs. This is a big deal, JPS, because we've been doing so many playlists and so many episodes. We had an underrated episode, which has been our most listened to episode and watched episode yet. Top 20 underrated Tori songs. We've done what we believe to be objectively Tori's 20 best songs, but we haven't yet given everybody our personal top 10 favorites. We're really excited to bring you into this game because we wanted to give you the opportunity to, make your list specifically about songs that you didn't sort of have to work on and labor over. Of course, we have the caveat that you may, if there's overlap because you've done other work on them, feel free. You do not have to stick.
Who gets it? By the way, who gets a chance? Again, being the spoiled child that I am, I've gotten a chance to actually do the original arranging on these songs and then do them again.
Right, I was thinking about that. It's very cool.
That was so, and so when I started doing that for the the string quartet, I was thinking, wow, okay, I get to do this again or change this or it was an interesting process. And one other thing, Nick DeCaro, what a wonderful arranger. I had to the scores for them didn't exist. They were lost. I had to transcribe the scores again, so I had to listen to the tracks and rewrite the score that he wrote and then work from that. It was a very interesting thing because I learned he was incredibly crafty, more crafty than I even considered, and he was very economical with his use. I learned a lot in that process of transcribing the scores.
With that, we are going to reveal our top 10s. This is just a maddening task, a crazy fool's errand, but we are going to give it a try.
We're going for it. All right. I'm going to go 10 to 1. So starting with 10, a classic from day fucking 1, Upside Down. Always want to hear it.
Okay.
Always being reborn. Chef's Kiss. I'm here for it all the time. Okay. Number 9 for me is Donut Song. I don't know what to say about that song other than I love it on the album. I love it live. I could listen to her play that song like 10 times in one show and that's it. And we leave and I am so happy. Honey, really love. Number 8 for me is Honey. Again, both studio and live is always a treat. I really love the guitar on it as well. 8, 9, 10, 9, 8, 7. Number 7 is a classic for I think everybody here we all love is IIE. 6, also a classic from fucking day 1 is Here in My Head. That song I think ages really well. And it's one of those things where you can just really feel like the longing being so young and like this relationship and that longing and then also looking back on that relationship years later, it ages well. You can feel that character growing up and growing older. And I love hearing it now. Number 4 is Putting the Damage On. I think the brass is gorgeous. That song, like, is palpably painful in the most beautiful way. I don't no words. If I want to feel something, much like Hey Jupiter at Le Poisson Rouge, I'll put on Putting the Damage On, any version. At number 3 is one of my most favorite Tori songs ever, which is Oysters. I love that song. I love the beach. I spent a lot of time at the beach this summer with my kids and my husband. We went to Costa Rica. We went to the Texas Gulf Coast like we do every summer. And we also went to Cornwall. We went to a different area of Cornwall I'd never been before. And I just, like, you can feel that song. Sitting on a rocky beach somewhere, you just feel that song. Easily one of the most underrated songs in Tori Amos's catalog is Caught a Light Sneeze. When has a pop song had harpsichord and just Baroque sexiness pop? Like, what the fuck is that? Nobody is as excited enough about that song as they should be, and I will die on that hill. So number 2, my number 2 song is Cooling, which I think is just beautiful songwriting, beautifully delivered. What I imagine is just kind of pure Tori Amos, like pure essence of Tori Amos. That's what I imagine is Cooling. And then, no secret here, my number 1 favorite song ever is Crazy. I wore my crazy necklace for this episode. It has Crazy engraved on it because I always ask Tori to play the song. But I think the songwriting is beautiful. It's fascinating how she basically turned like a moan into like a part of the music, and you literally feel like you're both in a canyon and in a relationship. And then also the idea of like unzipping your religion as opposed to losing your religion. No notes, A+. I love Tori Amos. The end.
So crazy, pull me in. Am I crazy? Taking a spin. Kicked off my shoes. Should breathe now. Instead, first, let's just unzip your religion now. Heard that you were once temptations.
Great.
Beautiful list. Well done.
That was
All right.
really good.
Let me
But
give you
you're-
all
Well
a
done.
That was a real B-side deep dive there
It
for you.
was deep.
and Reindeer King, like I was really struggling. At a certain point, you just have to make a decision. And I think
I
we
know.
all just feel like we're just going to go with it. Y'all know I'm a B-side girl. We've talked about this.
I got anxiety listening to your list because there were many that you said that were on my list originally that I moved, and I was like,
I don't like
almost,
picking.
yeah.
I don't like it. So here, real quick for our listeners, because they like to have a playlist. Upside Down, Donut Song, Honey, I.I.E., Here in My Head, Putting the Damage On, Oysters, Caught a Light Sneeze, Cooling, Crazy.
Gorgeous.
There you
Cool.
There you have it.
Gorgeous. Okay.
Wow.
I'm going to give a shout out to 3 songs that I really struggled with that I wanted to put on the list, but didn't make it. So quickly, I had Cloud on My Tongue, Lady in Blue, and Tori's cover of Heart of Gold from Strange Little Girls, which I think is like my personal favorite. Tori songs tend to have that like rock and roll edge. I grew up in Detroit, so Iggy and the Stooges for me is like, apex of Detroit rock and roll. So hearing Tori's kind of take on I Want to Be Your Dog is really, I think, so hot, especially because it's a Neil Young cover, right? It shouldn't make sense, but it's so good. But I'll start with my top 10. We've been doing this podcast for a year plus now, and we've re-listened to so many of these songs that maybe flew under the radar for us previously. So a lot of those songs now have moved into my favorites column. And this one was surprising for me, but 16 Shades of Blue from Unrepentant Geraldines makes number 10. I turned 50 this year, so I'm the same age as Tori was when that album came out. So I'm starting to hear it a lot differently. And a lot of those references to aging and sort of like the wistful, nostalgic look back at your younger self, realizing your potential as an older person, those themes are just really hitting different for me now. Also, I think that song has a soulful thread that is not in, all of Tori's music obviously has soul, but this one has a really particularly like bluesy, soulful vocal delivery for me that I just cannot get out of my head. I love the way the vocals are arranged and laid down on that track. So number 9 for me is going to be Leather. And Leather is sexy, campy, funny, queer. And I think it's such a good example of Tori's sense of humor as a writer and as a person. Tori is so funny. And to hear that come across in her songs, which, I think maybe the popular perception of Tori's songs is they're, very serious or very topical, very timely, very political. But she also has these songs that are just sexy and funny. This song has a biting wit to it that I think is one of those core tenets of Tori's music that I really respond to. So Leather is number 9. Number 8 is going to be Speaking with Trees. And that song for me, legend has it that this was my most played track on Spotify a couple of years running.
Twice, 2 years in a row.
Thank you for reminding everybody. The song for me always delivers from beginning to end. And I think that the way that she confronts grief in the song is so bold and moving and unexpected. And, for me, it really struck an everlasting chord because this album was coming out right as we were emerging from the worst part of the pandemic. So facing grief and catastrophic loss and moving forward were so important at that time. So this one really takes me back to that time when we were sort of thinking about what are the next steps. After that, I have Space Dog, the song that made me a Tori Amos fan. Always going to be one of my favorite songs. No notes on that one. After that, I have Josephine, which for me is a masterclass in storytelling. There's such a vast historical, romantic ground that she covers in those 2.5 minutes. And from a writer's perspective, that's so impressive. It's like a big, beautiful, dreamy, sonic novel. And it directly speaks to Tori's command of and relationship to words and language. So on an album that spends most of its time floating in space, Josephine really grounds the listener before blasting off again, which I just so appreciate. And I danced with my husband to this song on our wedding night. So it has that extra special connotation. Now, it is his birthday. I'm recording this podcast on his birthday. So I promised him I would give him a shout out on the podcast tonight. From there, I'm going to go to Cruel from Choirgirl Hotel, obviously. Transports me right back to the midnight sale in Dearborn, Michigan, 1998, standing in line waiting to buy this CD. Another place, another time. And it was so specific. Standing there in line while they were playing the song on their speakers, and I just wanted to get home to listen to this music on good speakers. I was like, please don't let me hear this song on this crappy sound system in this record store. But Cruel sticks with me because it's had so many reimaginings, so many versions, so many live variations, and certainly the 2011 quartet version sticks out for me. Also 2007 for me, the ADP tour, the rock and roll, like rock your face off and melt your face off basically during that tour is one of my all-time favorite versions of Cruel. But the version on the album also absolutely top tier. It was really hard to pick from that album. Okay, my next track is going to be Big Wheel. It's such a favorite of mine. Ahead of its time, I'm going to stand by that. Country rock pop, it could fit into the landscape of contemporary music right now and be played alongside any of the things that are being made right now in popular music, I think. And the absolutely audacious bridge. The song has balls. This is a ballsy song. I love the swagger. I love the attitude in it. And it has so much nerve. And I've never actually said this before, but Joey and Kristen, you should know this song should be played at my funeral. I'm not kidding.
Okay.
Noted.
Got it.
Number 3 for me is Crazy. And this one for me reminds me of my friend Kristen here, who I think Tori herself might even associate the song with Kristen at this point because they talk about it so much.
That's what I need.
It is one of my favorite songs though, but now it's always been a favorite, but now it also reminds me of my good friend. So I have warm memories of Crazy. And the last 2 for me are kind of interconnected. Number 2 is going to be Flicker, just because for me, being able to work on that song and on Audrey and Daisy when I was at Netflix, that was the realization of a dream for me. I got to do all of the things that I love doing. I was working on a documentary, working on an awards campaign, working with the musician who, I look up to more than most artists in life. So all of those things together came together seamlessly. And it was a once in a lifetime thing to be able to use the resources of Netflix to give all of these young women who had survived such heinous things a global platform to tell their story and to get some semblance of justice, and to have Tori being a part of that and sort of shepherding and mentoring these young women in the film was everything I had envisioned it to be. And it all played out luckily just like that. It was flawless and seamless. And now for me, that song is just such a anthem of resilience and strength and power. And I love it. I feel like that's a song that was almost written, for me as well. And then number 1, this is one of my all-time favorite songs, period. And I'm so glad that we have heard so much about it tonight, Reindeer King. Thank you for making that song. It's my favorite song. And I'm not going to go too far into it, but it came to me at a pretty low point in my life. And I needed to hear the lyric, "Gotta get you back to you," is so important. And it kept me tethered to life and to reality in moments where things were really bad. So I think it's, there are so many examples of Tori songs, helping people and saving people's lives and being so meaningful that they inspire change. And for me, this song does have that profound connotation. So I'm very grateful to have it at number 1. Thank you.
No way, not lost. I've just come from the frame. He says you purity, ooh, so crystal.
Another beautiful list. Nice. Very nice. I don't think I'm going to give commentary. I think I'm just going to give my list because you all have said so many wonderful things that I co-sign, and I think there's some overlap that you'll hear, but I'm also just really eager to get to JPS. All right, so from 10 to 1, number 10 is Reindeer King for all the reasons that Matthew just described, plus the majesty of it. Number 9 is Butterfly. Which I always forget is one of my favorites until I realize I don't think a day goes by that I don't like listen or sing it in my head in a random moment. Just a perfect little gem of a song. 8 is Oysters. 7 is Cooling. 6 is IIE. 5, Putting the Damage On. Just maybe the saddest song that she's ever done in a lot of ways.
It is.
And it's brilliant. And then the runner-up for saddest comes in number 4, and that's Playboy Mommy, which means a lot to me for personal reasons. Number 3 is Mother. Number 2, Tallulah, and number 1 will always be Pretty Good Year.
Greggy writes letters with his birthday pen. Sometimes he's aware that they're drawing him in. Oh, Lucy was pretty, your best friend agreed. Well, still pretty good, yeah. Pretty good. Pretty good, yeah.
Always. I'm curious really quickly. We talked about Upside Down, Cruel, IIE. The songs where T is doing that orchestral sort of synthy thing that sounds like it could be strings, but it's not. What is your feeling on that? Like, do you hear that and think there should be real strings on this, or do you understand why she's going?
I use my Chamberlain on a lot of our stuff.
How's that decision made?
and on Optagon and all kinds of other things.
Yeah.
Well, this is we're in a realm now that, for example, Ocean to Ocean, I used extensively the Berlin orchestra plugin. Plugin kind of is a disservice. It's a massive thing that creates some incredible sounds. It's a weird, I don't know what the answer to this is. I mean, it's completely gut level. There are some times when you want the orchestra, you want to have this big pillow, massive pillow that just surrounds you like an orchestra, a live orchestra does, with all its fuzzies and crinkles and whatever. And sometimes you want an orchestra to be absolutely dead on. And even when a large orchestra that's live is dead on, it's not exactly dead on. On Ocean to Ocean, I was able to do things that I kind of could have tried to do with an orchestra, but I was able to succinctly do it. I wanted that sound to be exactly tight. I wanted that sound. In other words, it's come to the point that you want that sound. It's not that you don't want a large orchestra. You don't want the Chamberlin. You want that sound of a large, great sample of a large orchestra playing. That's what we've come to. As an arranger and an orchestrator, I love it all. I mean, many times I'll use a Chamberlin as an alternative to a string quartet. And I even make it even more Chamberlin-y. I will take filters and modify the sound of the Chamberlin to even squish it further in bandwidth. So it's just this thing that's there. And I did a lot of manipulation on Ocean to Ocean. And when T does it, I mean, she does it because she used to come into my studio. She'd grab any instrument that was there. She'd play it completely not the way you're supposed to play it. And it sounded great. I mean, come on. How do you argue with that? Not only that, she plays my parts live. I mean, pick a lane. Jesus. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And this is something you can broadcast because I tell her this all the time. I say,
Right.
Come on.
Thank you. Thank you for indulging me. I've always been very curious about that. And now, drumroll, we have JPS's
JPS, give us that
top 10.
list.
We are ready for you.
Oh, God.
Here we go.
So, well, are we back to the ones that I didn't play on? Or the ones that
Why don't you just give us what you want?
I
to give?
love?
Whatever you believe to be the top 10 at this moment, will free you of the chains of
the top zone of the most obscure?
whatever your top 10 is, whatever feels right to you. If you can say favorite, if that's too difficult, that's whatever you prepared for us. We're ready for it.
Well, here's this is I worked on it, but there's an interesting reason I'm going to mention this. Besides me, Girl Disappearing, and it's back to the cinema concept. So there's Girl Disappearing on the record, which is a quartet, and I think a double quartet. And it reflects the interior saying, dialogue, all this stuff. It's a very personal sound, and it really works exceptional. So, and this happened a couple of months ago. I listened to both of them, and I do love the orchestral version of Girl Disappearing too, but it's almost like as if that's like a large cinema sound. That would be like, what's the color thing, CinemaScope or whatever. That's like a 60, whatever, 35 millimeter, whatever the big screen Cinerama. That's kind of like Girl Disappearing, and it's French, and there's color, and there's, it's the 50s, and it's Audrey Hepburn, in the room. Whereas on the record, it's like a French film, from the 60s, and maybe it's still even black and white, and it's kind of dark. So it's an interesting education in the differences between the arranging of both of those things, how the stage is set by the sound. Kind of back to your original question, the thing about the mellotron and the orchestra stuff. It's in the same realm. All these instruments that we have are just ways of orchestrating. That's it. I mean, there's no, it should be done by the live orchestra or not. And T and I always discuss this. I mean, I'll say, T, we don't need to do this with live orchestra. We need to do this with boxes, or vice versa. That's a very definite thing. But we live in a world now that's so amazing because we have it's so liquid. We have such a huge spectrum of sound to work with at this point. It's not confusing because now we can really fine-tune this narrative, very detailed. So again, words and sound and cinema are even closer at this point than they've ever been. And I'm enjoying it. And much of the work that I'm doing in the future can be part of this thing, the zeitgeist that exists now, this kind of liquid media that I call it.
Don't try to distract us.
Okay. So Promise, I absolutely adore.
Oh.
Her and Tosh is, when I first heard that, I said, I was crying. I mean, it was like, what? Tosh is a whole other topic. I mean, she's ridiculous. Lady in Blue, like I said, Lady in Blue has a fusion that exists. Some of those changes, when she played it for me over the phone, I didn't hear the recording. When she played it over the phone, it was like, it blew my mind. Those chord changes are ridiculous in the way she sings over it. I would have wished to have done it. I would have done it a little bit different, but that's okay. The orchestration, because for me, well, never mind. No, I don't have to get into that. Yeah, this crazy. This is different. This is not easy, guys.
Is what we say every time.
And again, I mean, many of the songs I worked on. I mean, Leather, Winter, Precious Things. Jesus, Precious Things was ridiculous to work on that live. With the orchestra. That was a jamming thing. Opening with Prokofiev, the harmonic. Close to the bridge harmonics that he did in the Firebird. I mean, being able to do all these tasty things. I mean, what other artists can I do all this stuff with? I mean, come on. My sister, I get to poke around with my sister. It's incredible. And in great places with great food.
Yes.
Okay, and we talked about Hey Jupiter. I absolutely adore Hey Jupiter. I adore working on it. Actually, I did not know what it was about until Tori explained it to me. It's that was deep too. It was like layers of deep when I was working on that. And what else? Oh, God. I wished I would have worked on Cornflake Girl, but that was a little bit too, wasn't at the wrong time, wrong whatever. When I mentioned Sugar. And also all of Venus. I would have loved to dug into all of that again. And that's a really great record. There's a lot of great stuff on there that we really, see, here's the thing. There's a lot of things I hear live. I have to get a set list because sometimes I don't know what song she's playing because I don't have a reference of really hearing the original lot like I do when I work on something.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing I can say about live, and I'll make just a general statement, is there's an amazing amount of great music in her live performance. I mean, there's really no fillers in there.
Mm-hmm.
One song after another. I can't believe it. It really is amazing.
It's true.
This, especially when I was at Red Rocks, that was an incredible, moment.
You probably didn't have to hike up the mountain like we did.
What do you mean? What do you mean? What happened?
Kristen and I were at that show, and
I was gonna get an oxygen
yeah,
tank.
we weren't prepared for the altitude, and we weren't wearing the right footwear, and we walked up anyway. And by the time we got to the top, we were not in the best of shape.
Wait a minute. When you say when you say to the top, were you at the top seats or at the top of for wherever you park?
No, we were really close to the stage.
Embarrassingly, he's talking from the parking lot to the second row seat that we got.
You guys.
During the general sale, and we had no plans to go, and I was like, we're fucking going to Red Rocks because I got second row, so we're going.
Wow.
It was a religious experience being there.
Incredible, truly. Well, I didn't have a seat. I purposely didn't get a seat.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I wanted to kind of mingle, but walk up and down those stupid stairs. I went up forever. I was not prepared for that either. Well, what was up there was a bunch of nice people because the people that work there are great. But also it was like the sky was completely opened up with these huge boulders. And it was like, wow, okay. So this is kind of like, you're feeling this timeless space there, and the sky's open and Tori's playing. It was an amazing experience. I think you guys felt that. We all felt this.
It happened a lot on that tour. I mean, there was electricity running through those shows. We were really lucky to see several shows on the East Coast. We went to New York, we went to New Jersey, we went to Boston.
I wanted to go to New York. I missed it.
And those shows really, we've seen a lot of shows. So for us, those shows were amongst some of the best we've ever seen. And the Red Rock show, yeah, it was totally a religious experience. I mean, it was the combination of that natural, awesome setting and the music at the center of it, holding everything together, despite all of like the wind whipping around and the
Right,
music
yeah.
blowing around. I felt bad for the guy who had to collect the music sheets.
Oh God, that's scary.
Yeah.
They pulled it off. Like, they pulled it off so well. That could have been bad, and it wasn't. It was incredible.
And the sound was great. Mark did a great job. And who knew that he was recording at the same? He recorded all these shows. I mean, again, an example of his technique is incredible to be able to do. By the way, I did a tour in France in 2015, and they did a live record recording. They had to replace everything in the studio except for me. Because I basically brought my studio with me in a rack, and I sent them to, left and right. I mixed myself and I sent it to them and they recorded it. Everything else, for some reason, got screwed up except for me. I didn't have to go into the studio. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying, you have to bring the right tools, to the gig. That's all I'm saying. But anyways, yeah, that was an amazing, I'm so glad she invited me there.
Well, I think that's probably a great place to take a pause and wrap up. Thank you so much for being here and talking to us tonight. This has been
great.
This has
I
been
love
so illuminating, and we're so lucky to have access to your brain. So thank you
Yeah.
thank you for allowing us a
Thank you.
glimpse into all
Your
of this. It's
brain and
really
your
special.
memory. I mean, it's really
Well,
such a privilege.
yeah.
Yeah.
What's left of my memory. Thank you.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Don't
But
poo-poo it.
well, listen, you guys are really great, and I really love the fact that you're so organized. This is
We try.
kind of right. You're organized.
We've gotten better.
You did well for somebody like me who is completely random. It's like it's a joy to
good.
be with you all. Thank you so
Good.
much.
Hey,
Thank you.
so we'll see you on the
Appreciate it.
road when?
When
What month?
something happens, something might happen. We're not sure.
In
In the near
spring.
future.
When don't. I have one other thing to plug. I'm going to plug something. now.
Please,
Plug.
please do. Please.
So I have a long-term project coming, hopefully to an end. Probably I'll start mixing in December, called Mandala, and it's back to this liquid concept. I did a lot of video shoots and recording. It's basically 9 women artists, poets, and singers and actresses telling stories. One of them is from Botswana. Another one is Irish English. Another one has an epic tale, Sephardic tale. I think she's going to say it in Ladino. But it's my compositions, both inspired by their narratives and their narratives inspired by me. And probably half of it will be a film. So far, I've got about a third of it in film already. And the concept of it is to edit it all at once. In other words, the film, the audio, and the narratives are all mixed at the same time so that everything influences each other. It's the ultimate thing I was telling you about both the concept of a liquid interaction between film and music. So I'm trying to do it kind of all at once. And I've got some incredible footage, and the music is varied beyond belief, both with classical pieces in between. And I think it's going to be an enjoyable experience. And it's actually an album. I mean,
Exciting.
an album of music, not of songs necessarily. The concept started as a whim about a decade ago. When I was on tour, I was writing a lot of music. And eventually, one morning I woke up around 4 years ago. I said, oh, no, it's none of this that I've conceived of. It's what this is, what I'm telling you now. I literally woke up and said, it's a narrativistic soundtrack with video. Yeah. So maybe the next time we'll talk about that, but I'm hoping we'll talk about it at some point and I get it finished at some point.
No, we look forward to it.
It's about halfway done now and hopefully done in the next few months.
That sounds right
Anyways.
up our alley.
I know.
It
can't
really
wait to
does.
see
sounds
Yeah,
great.
I'm
hear.
excited.
Yeah. It's
Very
weird,
much.
right? I think it's weird to say, oh, I can't wait to see it.
And hear, yeah.
For me,
You
I
can't
mean,
wait.
listen, I picked up a Canon R8 thinking that I'm a cinematographer, and I'm not. Okay, let me just a quick thing.
Hmm.
If you're not afraid to see and work with things, and again, theory, whatever, if you're willing, I think, now this is my theory, we're gonna test you guys. You're gonna have this project, you're gonna listen and see it, and you're gonna tell me if I'm right, because the idea is just dive in, which has been the story of my life since I've been 5. So this is the ultimate proof of a completely new media I'm diving into. So you're gonna judge. I'm gonna go on the show and you're gonna say, Phil, that looks like interesting, but you never know. I don't know. Tell me. I don't know. We'll have a discussion about this, whether I've succeeded at this or not. But I think I might. I think it's going to be something.
I suspect you'll succeed.
There's this thing doesn't have. I'm not in control of this. I stopped being in control of this 2 years ago. Literally, everything drops in the place. It's the weirdest project I've ever been on. 1 or 2 projects have been like this. I mean, of course, tease things are always hard work, and that's great. This has been hard work, and when something is needed, it shows up. So I don't know, but I'm excited about it, and so are the artists that are involved in it. I think it's going to be an interesting.
When something is needed, it shows up is a mantra that I think we could all do well to use.
What the heck is that? That's what I want to know. What forces? What is doing that thing? We should have another discussion on the arts and what is that thing.
Love that.
We should have a series of episodes with JPS about all of these.
Maybe on the road we can have some mocktails and tortilla chips and talk about philosophy and life. Doesn't that sound great?
That sounds great, actually.
Yeah. Oh, I'm totally into that.
Okay.
My God.
It's going to happen.
We can invite your sister. Maybe she can come. Maybe she can't.
Before we head out, Kristen, do you want to remind everybody where they can find us, follow us, and where they can find some cool merch?
Yes.
Which we will send your way, JPS. We got some merch for you.
We've got a mug will be coming your way.
Oh my God, that's great.
Eventually,
yeah,
yes.
I love that.
Introverted But Willing.com, and you can find our merch. We are proud to be ad-free, so we are slinging it through our store's merch shoppy. Please, just buy up some stickers and mugs. Enjoy.
Yeah, find us on YouTube. Subscribe.
YouTube. Yeah.
View.
Y'all, I need Apple reviews. I need Apple Spotify reviews.
5 stars only.
I'm going to quit if y'all don't.
Give it all to us.
Yeah, if you don't do the Apple reviews.
She means it. This is a labor of love, so we need everybody to on board.
Y'all need to do something. So, yeah, we need all that. Y'all show up.
Yeah, do something.
Yeah.
Do something. That's right.
That's all.
I think that's a great place to end it.
You're great.
John Philip Shenale says do something. Good night.
All right.
Good night, y'all.
When you gonna make up your mind? When you gonna love her as much as I do? When you gonna make up your mind? 'Cause things are gonna change so fast. All the white horses are still in bed. I tell you that I'll always want you near. You say that things change, my dear. Here is where